Pep Guardiola's Manchester City appear to have forgotten how to play football. The problem is, it looks like we have as well. Plus, how likely is it that Arsenal go big in the January transfer window? We'll also bring you a Premier League roundup on today's episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Let's get into it. Hey, everybody, how are we? Happy Monday to you all. Welcome back to another live episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou, coming to you from a cloudy, gloomy, but not too cold, thankfully, London this morning. We've got lots and lots to unpack from another busy weekend. As I say, we're going to talk Arsenal's plans for the January window. We're going to react to some of the big stories that developed over the weekend in the Premier League as well. Manchester City slump continues. Manchester United winners in the Manchester derby, of course, yesterday. We're going to touch on why it was such a great weekend for Chelsea in the end. We'll also react to the sacking of Gary O'Neill as well. So that there's lots to get into. It's going to be a bit more of a general episode, this one. But of course, we will spend a large chunk of our allotted time today reflecting on some of the reports concerning Arsenal's planned business for the January window. And I'm going to say it from now, I don't think it's going to go down too well with everybody. If you're joining us on this Monday, having not had the chance to listen to any of our reaction from the Everton game, you can do that. You can go back to the last episode on the feed, the last video on the channel, and you can get up to speed with what I had to say following what was undoubtedly a really, really disappointing afternoon at Emirates Stadium. Also, we unlocked our Patreon piece, the match day reaction piece. That's available to everybody if you'd like to check that out and get a bit of a taster of what we do over on the Patreon side of things as well. So those episodes are available to you on the podcast feed. So make sure that you check those out if you're interested. And a big thank you to those new patrons, especially who signed up over the course of the last few days. Really, really appreciate it, and appreciate the support, appreciate the love. Okay, how am I feeling about the whole Arsenal situation now that the dust has settled a little bit? I was quite strong on Sunday's episode with regards to my feelings about maybe why we're in the situation that we're in. Why has the creative spark seemingly disappeared? Why are Arsenal in a position where you just don't know where the next goal is going to come from? And that's honestly how I feel about this team right now. I look at it and I'm just like, well, yes, we have our moments and we've got lots of individual talent, which means just based on the law of averages, we're going to pick up a good amount of points over what remains of the season. But is it enough to get us over the line? Like, we started the season in a really sort of up and down way. And I think that was explainable, at least because of the situation that we were in with a combination of things, really, the injuries, the fixtures, etc., etc. But I was looking at this period after the international break as one in which we needed to get back on track, and one in which there would be no excuses. We'd have to put the type of run together that was going to drag us back into the title race. And it started well. It started brilliantly. I think it was 4 wins from 5 games. But then, of course, we went to Fulham and we dropped 2 really, really valuable points. And again, look, I can forgive that. I said it on the post-match pod when we were reacting to that one. Fulham away isn't an easy game. Look at some of the results that they've picked up. They've just gone and taken a point at Anfield as well in the weekend just gone. So Fulham are a good side. But, the Everton game is a real worry. And there's no getting away from that, right? I've seen a lot of people react to maybe my slightly stronger than usual reaction by saying, it's just a blip, man. Calm down, chill out, relax. I just don't think that's going to wash when you look at how it went down on Saturday, because look, at no point in the game did I feel like Arsenal were going to win it. Like, with the exception of 1 or 2 moments that we had, and you looked at them and you went, right, we need to follow this up now with another good attack, another good bit of play, another bit of really aggressive forward-thinking football. And if we do that, maybe now, while Everton are on the ropes, that's when we can land the knockout blow. And I criticized the manager's management of the game itself. And as the game developed, I looked at the team and felt it was less likely to score than more likely to score, which means that I've got to say that the changes and the decisions that Mikel Arteta made, at least in my opinion, didn't all make 100% sense. Sometimes you look at a manager and you think, well, he's done everything that I would have done. He's done pretty much everything that I would have gone for. He's tried everything that I would have tried, and it just hasn't worked. Therefore, I can't really put the blame at his door. But that wasn't the case this time around. I thought some of the changes were strange. I thought the way he prioritized certain players getting on first, all of that kind of stuff, it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. And I got to be honest, I was left feeling quite disappointed with how it went down and what went on to happen. But anyway, we move on. The dust has settled a little bit. As I said, it could have been a lot worse had Liverpool won. They didn't, thankfully. Liverpool dropped a couple of points, as I mentioned, at home to Fulham. The only winners this weekend really were Chelsea, because Chelsea managed to beat Brentford and Chelsea managed to close the gap on Liverpool more, to pull away from Arsenal a little bit more. And it was an all-round really, really good weekend for Enzo Maresca's side. And listen, they keep on going. You know, people keep saying, oh, I don't know about Chelsea. In fact, their own boss constantly says, I don't know if they're in it. I don't know if they can do it. I think it's too early for this team, etc., etc. But he must be looking at the way they're playing. He must be looking at the results that they're picking up. He must be looking at their run of games to come and thinking, you know what, we could be in this at the business end. And the great thing for Chelsea is that there is zero pressure on them, because nobody at the start of the season even put them in the conversation. I think there were people at the start of the season that didn't think they were even good enough to make the top four. So to now be in the conversation around the title, it's a testament to the job that Enzo Maresca has done thus far. It says a lot about how quickly he's been able to kind of turn things around at that football club. And yeah, he'll be delighted, but he's obviously trying to keep his players' feet on the ground. He's trying to manage that expectation level, because he obviously recognizes it's a young group of players, and putting that pressure on them is probably not a good thing at this stage. So those are my feelings on Arsenal. Obviously, as I say, looking at the weekend on the whole, Chelsea definitely the big winners. The Manchester derby was really, really interesting. And I think we got to touch on that just ever so briefly. I know it's an Arsenal pod. I know that's what you're here to hear about. And we will get onto Arsenal's transfer plans very, very shortly. But just a couple more points from the weekend's football. The Manchester derby has got to have been past tense, because it's happened now, the worst Manchester derby I can remember in a long, long time in terms of the standard. My God, the standard, guys, was on the floor. Both sides were terrible. Terrible. Really, really poor. We talk about a lack of creative spark when we're discussing Arsenal. There's a lack when it comes to Manchester City at the moment, despite having the best striker in the world, as some people would tell you, which kind of proves the point that it's not just about having a centre forward, and that bringing in a certain centre forward isn't necessarily going to fix all of Arsenal's problems. But Manchester City have dropped off so dramatically. I can't put my finger on why. There's the obvious go-to reasons, the injuries, the absence of Rodri, etc., etc. All of that makes perfectly good sense. But it feels like something major there, something else has gone really awry. And I can't put my finger quite on what it is. Judging by Pep Guardiola, it looks like he hasn't slept in a month. So I don't think he can quite put his finger on what it is either. But it's a really, really tough time for Manchester City. And Manchester United, by the way, who played equally as diabolically, I thought, especially in the first half, just had a couple of moments of brilliance in them and were able to take all 3 points. Big win for Ruben Amorim. He went out on a limb yesterday as well by leaving sort of Rashford and Garnacho out the way he did, sort of suggesting, hinting that he wasn't totally pleased with what he'd seen from them or the vibe that he was getting from them over the course of the week and in training. But he left them both out. Amad Diallo was sensational. His goal was superbly taken. That boy is a talent. He really, really is. Obviously, United were handed away back into the game because of Mateus Nunes making a really silly challenge in his own box. But I think, for Manchester United, Ruben Amorim will try and use that as a bit of a lift-off point. He'll try and use it as something to give his team confidence, because it doesn't matter how badly this Manchester City side are playing at this moment in time. The fact that they've been so formidable for so many years makes any victory over them, especially at the Etihad, a really, really big scalp, and something that you can use, I think, to then try and galvanize your players and galvanize your team. The other big news from the Premier League this weekend was that Gary O'Neill was sacked, Wolverhampton Wanderers manager. Look, I think when your players are starting to lose their rag, the way that Gary O'Neill's players are, I don't think you can really have any complaints when the club decide that enough is enough. Russell Martin was also sacked last night after Southampton were battered in the first half by Tottenham Hotspur. And so, yeah, a couple of managerial casualties at the weekend. Pep Guardiola's talking as though he's going to be a managerial casualty, but I just can't see it. He's done so much at that football club. He's got quite the CV, hasn't he, the Spaniard? I'd be shocked if they were to part ways with him. Will he resign at the end of the season? Well, I think that's a real possibility if things continue in the way that they are. Would it be in anticipation maybe of what might be coming down the line with regards to the charges and all the rest of it? Don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. But I don't think we live in a world where Pep Guardiola is going to be sacked anytime soon. So, yeah, people can calm down on that, I think. Okay, let's focus on the Arsenal again now. That's what I really, really want to get my teeth into. Get your thoughts, get your questions, get your comments coming into me live right now on this Monday morning. I'd love to hear from you. We're going to talk about Arsenal's January transfer plans, or at least Arsenal's rumoured January transfer plans. We're going to get into all of that after I give you guys a quick message. I just want to let you know that the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast is partnered with NordVPN, the best VPN service out there. It's a service that I personally can't do without anymore. Whether you're looking to stream your favorite Christmas films or all the festive football, NordVPN is the one for you. It is a game changer. You can sign up via the link in the description. Visit nordvpn.com/Chronicles AFC for a mega discount and 4 months free at the end of your plan. Not only does it give me extra protection when surfing the web, downloading or streaming, I now have the ability to change my location with the click of a button, meaning I can access geo-blocked content. It's brilliant. Sign up now via nordvpn.com/Chronicles AFC and take advantage of this amazing offer. Plus, with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, it's totally risk-free. You won't regret it. nordvpn.com/Chronicles AFC. We thank them for their support of the pod. And for those of you that are signing up, we thank you for your support of the pod, because that's the way these things work. The more people sign up, and it is a very worthwhile service. I wouldn't be advertising it or advocating for it if I didn't genuinely believe it was. Believe me. Check it out. It's really, really good. It's great stuff. And if you sign up via our code, then obviously that blows back on us and helps the podcast greatly as well. Not directly. There's no commission or anything like that. But obviously, if Nord find the campaign over the course of this next month being completely transparent with you guys, beneficial, then they're more likely to renew, which then does help the podcast, obviously. Okay, we're going to take a really, really short pause. When we come back, we're going to get into Arsenal's transfer plans for January, or alleged transfer plans for January, and I don't think this is going to go down that well. Welcome back to the pod. Hope you're all having a wonderful Monday so far. Okay, let's discuss a report then that came out yesterday from well-respected, well-renowned journalist James Ollie. He reported that the Gunners are not, or were not, planning to spend big next month. I can hear everyone's sigh of deflation. I could just hear it. Arsenal are not planning to go big next month, or at least weren't planning to go big next month. Arsenal are, as he says, presently of the view that only injuries or an exceptional opportunity would push them into spending big. So, you know, a lot of people looked at the summer window and felt a little bit underwhelmed by it. A lot of people looked at the business that we did and thought, okay, you know, I'm quite happy with Calafiori. It's proven that he is just as injury prone as we feared, which, you know, isn't great. But people were generally quite pleased and excited by that signing. Then we spent the majority of the summer in pursuit of Mikel Merino, who's come in, and if we're being blunt and completely honest, has been a little bit underwhelming. And then at the end of the window, when everybody thought that Arsenal were going to go really, really big on an attacker, they ended up moving for Raheem Sterling on loan, which felt like a good alternative. If you couldn't get the attacker that you wanted, the main man, if you couldn't break the bank at that point or didn't feel it was right to do for some of the options that were available at that period, then Raheem Sterling felt like a good stopgap. Super experienced, has been really reliable throughout his career in the past, really effective in this league, knows it inside out, had worked with Mikel Arteta before. And so you got to the end of the window and you went, well, at least I did. And I thought, okay, look, it's not the greatest window. It's not the most transformative window. It's not like the window we had the summer prior, for instance. But I think we've done some smart business and in some areas where it was needed. Definitely felt we needed a midfielder. Definitely felt we needed an attacker of some sorts. But I also felt that we needed another left back option. And we got essentially all three of those. Now, the problem is that none of those signings have really worked out so far. Calafiori's been good when he's played, but the problem is he hasn't played anywhere near enough. Mikel Merino, very unfortunate to pick up an injury at the start of his Arsenal career that saw his debut almost delayed by a good couple of months. Problem, obviously. And since he's come in, he's done okay, but nothing really to ride home about. So that's why people are frustrated by that one. And Raheem Sterling, as we touched on Sunday's episode, has barely had a chance, which I find really, really frustrating, given that we seem really blunt in attack and given that Arsenal felt that this guy was a really, really good option. Bear with me a second. I'm just having some mic issues. 1 second. Hold on a second. Hear me now? You should be able to hear me now. Give me 1 second. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. One, two. One, two. 1, 2. Hold on a second. There we go. Add to stage. Remove. There we go. That should have solved the problem. Sorry about that. I've got no idea what was going on there. Hold on. Let me just close that tab down and we should be good to continue. I hope so. Let me know if you can hear me. I hope all is good. Sorry about that. I've got no idea what went wrong there. Typical. It was like the most free flowing pod I've done in a while as well. And it just ended up going to shit because that's what happens to me. But anyway, let's get back to it. So look, the window in the summer hasn't turned out to be as fruitful and as beneficial as we hoped it would be. And that's why people are looking at January and thinking we absolutely have to go out and do the business now in order to strengthen our title credentials, in order to strengthen our chances of going out and achieving what we want to achieve between now and the end of the season. And it's difficult. It's a difficult time of year because there's a lot of games. The fixtures are coming thick and fast. We play in a cup quarterfinal on Wednesday night. But when you look at the last couple of performances and the results that have come subsequently, it's difficult not to look past the next few games and into January and want Arsenal to go out and do the business. You know, it's really difficult not to think that way or to feel that way because we can all see that there are things missing. We can all see that there are problems. James Ollie's report doesn't rule out, by the way, Arsenal doing any major business. It doesn't say explicitly that Arsenal aren't going to sign anyone or that Arsenal have no scope and there's no chance that Arsenal are going to go out and address some of those problem positions. But it does put a bit of a downer ahead of the window because you look at the window and you go, well, you know, this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to bring one or two in and potentially put our season back on track. And then you read reports like this, which say, and it's nothing to do with James Ollie, by the way, don't direct your frustrations at him. But, you know, you read something like that and you just think, well, of course they're not. And it just adds to the frustration. And now that negativity around transfers is already in the air in the middle of December. We haven't even got to January yet, but you can already feel it. You can already expect it to kind of seep into people's mindsets and cause a greater level of negativity and maybe toxicity around Arsenal Football Club. So, yeah, where do we need to strengthen, I guess, is the next question. If I'm sitting here saying that we do, and I'm disappointed that the latest reports are suggesting that, you know, we don't have any big plans. The question is, right, well, where do we need to strengthen? And I think this is another problem that we have because it isn't simple. It isn't as straightforward as we only need an attacker. I think we do need an attacker, but we obviously need some more as well, because you look at that defense of ours, and when everybody's fit, I think the defensive unit is as close to complete as it could possibly be. I don't think anything is ever totally complete. I don't think anyone is ever totally satisfied with the squad they have, but we'd be very damn close to it if Calafiori was fit, if White was fit, if Tomiyasu was fit, if Zinchenko was always fit. We have so many players that are, constantly out, that you start to look at them and you start to almost forget, like, how good a unit we have at the back. But the problem is that so many of those players are often absent, therefore leaving us short, because we've put big investment into those guys, big reliance into those guys, and you end up without them for large periods, which doesn't help. We've been talking so much recently about attacking spark, about a lack of creativity. And so the question with the attack, it isn't a question of, do Arsenal need an attacker? We absolutely 100% do. But the question is, do we need a goal scorer? Are we looking for someone who's a goal scorer, who's going to contribute big numbers? Or is our problem that we don't have enough creators, and therefore do we need to look for a creator who can unlock the goal scoring potential in some of the players that we have available to us already? So this is where the dilemma kicks in for me. Do we need another Martin Odegaard type creator, so that when he has off games like he did against Everton, really off games like he did against Everton, we've got that alternative to turn to? Or do we need a striker who you feel only needs one chance, couple of chances, and is going to make that vital contribution? Which type of attacker, which profile of attacker do you prioritize? And I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think about this? Is it about bringing in a striker, a bagsman, as the kids call him, or is it about bringing in another creative force? Because I'm genuinely torn on this. I don't think we need a defender if everybody's available, but given their history, I can't ever sit here really hand on heart and say, oh, you know what, you can trust Tomiyasu. Or, you know what, and I know it's early in his Arsenal career, but I'm going by his previous history as well. Oh, you can trust in Calafiori. You just can't. You just can't, because their history tells us you can't. And I remember when we did a sort of breakdown on Calafiori, prior to him actually signing Arsenal. I remember recording it. I remember I was out in Germany at the time at the European Championships. I remember saying that the injuries are a big concern. They're a big problem. I love the player, love what he offers, love what he can do when he's available, but how available is he going to be? And that was always the big question mark around him. So, look, defense we could do with another option if we feel as though, those players that are currently sidelined are going to struggle to have much of an impact this season. But for me, it's about the other end of the pitch first and foremost. And how do we go about addressing that? How do we go about dealing with that? Is it the out and out striker, or is it the creator? Based on what I said on Sunday, I feel like it might be the creator. And hear me out here, because it's not that I don't want a striker. It's not that I don't want an Alexander Isak. My God, of course I want an Alexander Isak. But if all the reports we are hearing, if all the suggestions are, if all the indications are that Arsenal aren't planning on going big in the January window, then how do you get Alexander Isak in? How do you get Victor Gyökeres in, another player that I know a lot of Arsenal fans would love to see come in to the football club? How do you get those guys in if there's no willingness, ability? Is it ability? I don't know if it's an ability or if it's a willingness, but how do you get those players in if you're not ready to or able to go and put that type of money down on the table? And it's frustrating, right? Because I want to give KSE a lot of praise for the way they invested over the last few years and the way that they pushed the club, under the guidance of Edu and Mikel Arteta, back into the right direction. And it's kind of caught some wind in the sails, and it's gone upstream a lot quicker than maybe people thought. And we're now in a place where we're expected to win the Premier League title. For that, they deserve immense credit. But if you're going to only do 80% of the job and not then make the investment or make the moves that will see you get over the line, then what the hell was the point in it at the beginning? And it comes back to a question that we've always had around KSE, which is, how big is their ambition? And when they were spending big money in recent years, people always said, well, no, actually, they've proven to us that their ambition is to go on and be the very best, that their ambition is to get Arsenal right back to the very top of the tree. But now we're sort of, one branch from the top. We need to give ourselves the ability to make that leap up to the next one, because this is the hardest jump to make. It's the hardest step to take, I believe. Getting back in contention, difficult, yeah, but it's doable. Getting over the line is where it becomes hard, is where it becomes difficult. It's what separates the good from the great. And, I know a lot of people have given Mikel Arteta a lot of stick recently, myself included as well, in the last couple of weeks with regards to some of the performances, the lack of creativity. I keep talking about lack of spark. I even sort of, people would say, accused him. I don't know if I'd use that term, but my theory is that we've almost coached some of the spontaneity and unpredictability out of our attack because we are desperate to dominate, to control. That is at the top of Mikel Arteta's objective list, if you like. And as a result of that, we're now seeing a side that don't know how to break from that mold and don't know how to be their creative, imaginative, and spontaneous selves. And that has made us easier to defend against. It's made us predictable, etc., etc., etc. I'm really disappointed to read that Arsenal don't have plans on going big on January, but am I surprised by it? Not really, for two reasons. One, I always felt like the KSE spending was going to slow down, factor in PSR and all the rest of it, and you got to understand that, it might not be possible to go as big as some of us fans would like. But the other reason, I'm not surprised is because I don't think any very well-run club aims to go massive in January. I think you always aim to do the bulk of your business, the significant business, in the summer, and January is used as a bit of an emergency window, or as James Ollie reported, if an opportunity presents itself, let's say it's someone that you had your eyes on for the summer anyway, and you can get the deal done, get them to come in and embed in and help you for half a season prior, then that's great. That's great. That's fantastic. That works. Okay, so I think it's not outrageous that Arsenal didn't have plans to go big in the window. But as we get closer to it and we're seeing the problems that we're seeing right now, I now think there's no excuse to not explore the possibility of doing some of that business and bolstering your attacking options, especially because we need to keep pushing. We need to keep going. If we want to keep our Premier League and Champions League and Cup hopes alive, we need to be better than the current iteration of Arsenal, which is a very good team, don't get me wrong. And the standards that we're judging them by are far higher than they ever were 5-6 years ago. Nobody's denying that for a second. But to get over the line, we need more. That has become clear, apparent, evident. And I would love to be sitting here at the end of May saying I was wrong, Mikel Arteta and Arsenal were right. But at this moment in time, I just can't see that. So that's where I'm at on the January business thing. I think it's essential. I don't know how big we have the capability of going. Is it going to be stopgaps? Is it going to be, I don't know, 30 plus striker? And I don't mean 30 plus in terms of goals. I mean in terms of age, who's got a record of finding the back of the net to come in for, a short period, a year, 2-year contract to try and help us, bolster those attacking options, to give us something different, because Jesus has fallen off a cliff and it's too much of a burden on Kai Havertz. I know people have their opinions on this as well. But, I think he needs help. I think that's clear and obvious, to use a VAR phrase. But yeah, or is it a case of accelerating plans that you maybe have for the summer, trying to raise the funds in another way and just getting the deals done ASAP? It's difficult. It really, really is. I don't envy the people in charge. And obviously, the fact that we don't have a sporting director in place right now, obviously because of Edu's departure and he's on gardening leave or whatever it is. And there's a lot of talk about Olabe maybe coming in. If he is coming in the near future, does that give him a say on what we do in January? Is Jason Ato going to take over? The man who was Edu's right-hand man, essentially, and what do his plans look like? Are they completely in tandem with those maybe of Mikel Arteta? Can what is in the brains of Ato or Olabe or Arteta be put to practice by KSE? there's so many questions, and it's so difficult to dissect this kind of thing, right? But that's where I stand on this. I think we should be looking to bolster in some way. I'd like it to be long-term business brought forward, but I'm also realistic enough to know that that might not happen. Is it about plugging holes? Is it about bringing in short-term deals? And listen, this is the thing, right? When people talk about transfer strategies, and our transfer strategy over recent years, it's had a lot of praise. A lot of people have looked at it and said Arsenal are doing things right because they're buying for the long term. They're spending big money on players, but they're players that they've done their due diligence on and that they're almost certain are going to be successes and hits at the football club. But a transfer strategy, a good transfer strategy, isn't just about making those long-term signings. It's not just about that. It's a big part of it, and that builds the base foundation and underpins everything that you do, of course. But it's also sometimes about being able to recognize when there's a player that can come and help you in the short term. And we've done that relatively well in recent years. Jorginho is a great example of that. Leandro Trossard's a good example of that. We were in the market for Mykhailo Mudryk at 80, 90 million quid. And then we ended up turning to Trossard, who was a much cheaper option. Okay, Trossard's far older and was never going to be an 8-10 year signing, but we pivoted, we changed direction. And generally, although he's having a bit of a bad time at the minute, as are a lot of others, it feels like, he's been generally a successful signing. So I think, transfer strategy is complex. It's, yes, do those long-term deals, the deals that you think are going to put you in a great position for the coming years. But you've also got to be able to recognize short-term needs, players that can fulfill those short-term needs and make those deals happen as well. So, yeah. Cool. Gonna take a few of your comments before I ride off into the sunset today. Let me know your thoughts on all of this. What else have we got? AY says that we really need 3 players, a dynamic 8, a tricky wide player who can beat a man, and a striker. We should be getting one of those in January at the very least. I think there is a need for all 3 of those players. I agree. But again, your point is also valid when you follow it up by saying, don't know how likely that is in January. A nice comment from AJ who says, I admire Harry's insight on this. I may be harsher on the club and not always see his point of view, but I like how he can at least deconstruct viewpoints on Arsenal. Thank you very much. Really, really do appreciate that. Louis Robson believes that Martinelli just needs a rest for 5 games. And if that happens, that he'll come back and be strong. I'm not sure. I think it's deeper than that. I really, really do. Halo says, Harry, Arsenal are the 5th best goal scoring club in the Prem right now. Is that something you would say is good enough going forward? I mean, it's a stat that when you look at it, like you think, and this comes from, or this speaks to, I should say, the point I was making about Mikel Arteta being obsessed with certain metrics and stuff. So like domination, you want to be the best. You want to control every aspect of the game. You would think in theory that you want to be, or you should be, the highest goal scorers in the league if you want to win the league. But that doesn't always tell the full story. Like Brentford are among the highest goal scorers in the league, and look at where they are in the table. Like it's a good position for Brentford, but they're not going to win the Premier League anytime soon, is the point I'm trying to make. So if you score a lot of goals, but you ship a lot of goals, then it kind of cancels itself out. And if your defense is very, very good and you don't score as many as some of the others, again, that's not so much of an issue. So I think that stat, it can be a little bit misleading, but if you're striving to be the best in every department, then you'd look at that and think, well, we've got to be better than 5th best. But if we were like 3rd or something, for instance, I wouldn't be that worried about that, to be honest with you. I think we all agree that there's a problem at that end of the pitch. Nobody's denying that for a second. I've spoken really openly and honestly about my feelings on that over the last few days, but I don't know that I would read into that stat too much at this stage. What else have we got? Let's see what you got. Pap says, do the players not need to take some accountability on their performances? Yeah, they do. Of course they do. Of course they do. Ultimately, it all stems back to the manager, I think, because I believe that the reason for the lack of creativity right now is to do with our obsession around control, possession, all the rest of it. And we've taken steps to ensure that we're really good in that department, that we're really risk averse, but in maybe slightly crossing the line on that stuff, we've sort of hindered ourselves a little bit. We've taken away from from those individuals that we're expecting the moments from. I feel like we've just taken some of their license away, which is why we are where we are right now. But you're absolutely right. The players do need to take some accountability as well. And I think there are a lot of players who are performing at a much lower level than they were last season. But when you're talking about it being 5, 6, maybe even 7 players, then I think you have to start to look at the collective, the system, what's being put in place, the demands that are being placed on them, the ideology behind it all. And there, I think you can find what might be a deeper rooted problem. So I agree that the players need to take responsibility. I agree that there's a load of players whose performances this season have been bang average up until now, nowhere near the level required if we're going to go on and win the Premier League. But I think as a manager, you're responsible, and you've got to find solutions and alternative ways of going about things if what you're currently putting across in terms of your messaging is just not working. Nenko says, hi Harry, about the Edu situation, could it be the case of Arsenal not buying who Edu wanted, or Edu not wanting to buy who Arteta wanted? Maybe Arteta wanted a striker but didn't get it, or vice versa. I look, I think generally speaking, those two guys were singing from the same hymn sheet. But I do think that there were a few things over the course of last summer where they probably clashed heads on, right? So Mikel Merino was one of them, from what I understand. Mikel Merino's signing was one that wasn't fully endorsed by everybody at the football club. I don't know if it was Edu specifically, but I know that there was some discontent around that, and there was some questions being asked about the player's age profile, etc., etc. Okay. So I do think that even if generally your ideas align with someone's, you're not going to agree on every single point. And actually, it's not healthy to agree on every single point, because I always think that to have a healthy working relationship, there needs to be challenge. There needs to be pushback. There needs to be sanity checks. Because as a manager, you can really, really like a player. But if it doesn't make financial sense for the club, and it doesn't make sense when trying to keep, aligned with the overall transfer strategy, then someone needs to call you out on that. And I think there would have probably been some disagreements. I personally think that Edu's departure is mainly because he was offered the opportunity to take on a higher role, a role that he wanted at Arsenal that he just was never going to get. But at the same time, for him to have given up on a job that he's done so well for such a long time now, and to have jumped ship before the project went bang, before the project resulted in trophies or anything like that, that says to me that maybe not all was well behind the scenes. Maybe there were more disagreements than we know of, or believe there was, or would have predicted. So yeah, that's my feelings on that one. Right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me. Apologies for the slight tech issue in the middle. If you're listening on audio, you won't have a clue what I'm on about, because I'd have cut it out by the time we upload that. But thank you for your patience as always. I'm just peering out into the garden now. The new man cave, guys, it's in progress. It's in progress. The guy is working at a really, really good pace, which I'm really, really happy with. And the work looks great. So really, really excited to be getting in there, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. There's a lot of work to be done. But yeah, hopefully I'll be in there soon. And yeah, that's why I chose to sit in this room today, so that I could peer out onto the marvel as it's being developed that is going to be the new home of the Chronicles of a Gouda podcast. Thank you all so much. I'll see you all on the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves. Have a great day. Goodbye.